Hiya, everybody. It's Monday. It's me. Yes, me as usual. Every Monday. Only the lonely, as Charlie Cairns always says. Only the lonely. Anyway, I'm here on my own. I've got a great guest. He's coming on in a moment. But what I'd just like to say is this: give a message out to Jake Abraham. And Jake, as you know, is an old friend of mine. Fine actor, a fine actor. And the play I was going to do with a reflection of Dickens at the St George's Hall concert room. Unfortunately, COVID hit us, so it was scrapped. Well, it was put on the shelf, if you like. And the bad news is that prostate thing, for G. And at least he's brave. He's talking about it. He's advising the likes of us, to be tested. So it's get well, keep fighting, keep your chin up, Jay. Okay? Keep your chin up, because we all love you. We all love you. And get in touch if you're there listening to this. Just get in touch with me, okay? Cheers, fella. And hopefully see you soon. A few little prayers for you, okay? And hopefully you'll get over this. So I've got me guest on tonight. Got a great history clip. I've got, we'll talk about history after Derek's on. Derek Shelmerdine, who's actually talking about Steve Marriott and the Small Faces. The lead singer for the Small Faces. And I thought that they were fantastic live. I actually seen them live. So I just want to say hello to a few people here. Hang on, and then I'll bring on Derek. Evening chaps. That's nice, isn't it? Evening chaps. Harry Wood. Frank. Yes, Frank. You all right? Harry, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, thank you. I really am. Thank you for asking, Harry. And I haven't seen you before, but at least you're there. You're on the thing. You're on the famous little thing there. What I put up. The lovely Lindsay Ellis, Lynn. Evening, Frank. Thank you, Lynn. Yes. And this is another new fella. Never heard of this fella either, Mark Kinnish. Evening, Frank. Hope you're well. Looking forward to the walking tour on Thursday. Mark, you know what your job is, don't you? You know what your job is. And you've got to do it. You've got to do it. Tony Barton, 2 pints, thumbs up. Hello, Frankie. Oh, thank you. Where's me mince pies? I always remember on Christmas, I said, you know what? I said, I like mince pies on there. And he brought me a big thing from Costco. It took me 6. I froze some. Oh, what a man. Thank you. Lee Brady. Hello, Frank. Hiya, Lee. Hope you're well. There he is. Look, up the legs. Lee, tomorrow night. Be a good one tomorrow night. It will be a good one. Good podcast on Liverpool. Join in, mate. Thumbs up for your chat already. I'll also share it, says Lee Brady. Thank you so much. Share it tomorrow, please. Please share it tomorrow night as well. And chapesses. Hello, good evening, chap. Good evening, chaps and chapesses. If there's such a word, yes. If you put it down, me, if you put it down and I said it, there must be a word, chapesses. Yes, Frank, I will hold your bag. Thank you. Says Mark. Very York. Hi, Frank. Hi, Vera. Hello. Hope you're well. Like your little photo there. Meet your hubby, is that? I hope so. It's not that fella from down the road, is it? And you're sneaking off for to clubs. And Tony Barton. And I'm going to bring, he's laughing his head off. And I'm bringing this great fella. Love this fella. Everybody loves this fella. I don't know who he is like, but everybody seems to love him. And there he is. It's Derek.
Hi, Frank. Good to see you, mate.
Oh, and you. You're really good. Yeah, look at that. Just a minute, please. Derek Shelmerdine's Rock and Roll Unraveled. I've got to tell them. I was looking for it before. And I've got books all over. Anyway, it's that thick. It's like an encyclopedia. It's fantastic. And where can you get it? Where can you get it, Derek?
You can actually order it at any UK bookshop because it's part of the the wholesalers lists. So you can order it at any shop. You can buy it on Amazon. It's on Amazon, and you can buy it directly from my website.
Brilliant.
So it's freely available, as it were.
That's great. That simply because people love their music. It's like I'll tell you. We were talking about Roy Wood the other week, weren't we?
That's right, yeah.
I got messages in. Oh, great, Dad. We love, Roy Wood. So they're like in the 70s, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And they were made up you were talking about Roy Wood, so that's a good thing. That's a great thing to get messages through like that and about your slot on air talking about, and I'm sorry about this. I'll just go down. Mark Kerry says, "Evening, Derek."
Hi, Mark.
Neil Broderick says, "Evening, Degsy." How about that, Degsy? Degsy. And hello, Derek, and a pint for you and a thumbs up from Tony.
Oh, brilliant. You can't go far wrong with a pint.
No, you can't. And Sandra Kirkpatrick. Hi, Frank. Hi, Sandra. Hope you're well. Hope you're well, sweetheart. Everyone's saying hello to you. Look at the kisses for Frank there off, the little emoji. 9 little kisses. I've got no baggage. The only thing I've got is a wardrobe. Anyway, thank you, Sandra. I love you. And Lee Brazy, hi, Derek. So they're all saying hello to you.
Oh, that's great. Hello to everyone out there in Facebook land.
And YouTube.
And YouTube land, exactly.
Yeah. And Twitter. Everything. You're not more than me. Anyway, Derek, we're going to talk. I seen the small faces. And, live. Yeah. And they came on, here's how they came on. And it was brilliant because what has happened, Eric? Oh, Lynn, what has happened? They came on. I'll tell you what they were like. They were like, do you know the way you seen the scene in London on film?
Yeah.
Right, so they came on and they were all dressed up, long coats on and whatever. And then they just took them off and then they played. It was brilliant.
Absolutely.
Absolutely fantastic. And live, unbelievable.
Oh, they're a great band.
So, Steve Marriott, did he start it off, Derek? Can you tell us?
Yeah, there's an awful lot to talk about Steve Marriott before the Small Faces came along. I mean, the guy was born in Bow in London on the 30th of January, 47, so presumably in the sound of the bells. So the guy's a true Cockney. But in 1960, so he'd be about 13, he played the Artful Dodger in the West End. So, like Davy Jones in the Monkees, he started out very much in the same kind of musical theatre way, and he had his first single in March of '63. It was a solo single on Decca called "Give Her My Regards." Not a song that's particularly well known, so I found it up on YouTube and I'd listened to it earlier, and it's very, very similar to Tommy Rowe's "Sheila" that had been a hit a little before that. If you check it out, it's called "Give Her My Regards." It's easy to find a video of it, and it puts you straight in mind of Tommy Rowe.
Sheila, yeah, Sheila.
He got into his first band called the Frantics with a K around the same sort of time, '63, and they actually recorded "Move It." And Tony Meehan, the guy from the Shadows, he was involved in that particular recording. It was never released. So I've never been able to track down.
Do you reckon that there is a tape of it somewhere?
Yeah, I'm sure there will be. I just couldn't track it down. And the Frantics became the Moments, which really was the band he's most associated with. Sometimes called themselves Steve Marriott and the Wandering Ones as well. I mean, '60s had some great band names. And, already we were talking about Tony Meehan. And in a parallel universe somewhere, there is no Small Faces. And that's because in '64, he was talking to David Bowie about forming an R&B duo. They were going to call themselves David and Goliath. So you can imagine if that had come off. I mean, they're both very, very strong guys. And, it might well have been that there never was a Small Faces.
Yeah.
The other guy that's very much part of the pre-Small Faces is Andrew Loog Oldham. He was the second manager of the Rolling Stones, and he pops up a lot in Steve Marriott's story, and he recorded with Steve Marriott and also Andrew Oldham Orchestra. They recorded a single called 365 Rolling Stones brackets, one for every day of the year, which I think is a great title, and he plays harmonica on that. And also that single is reputed to have John McLaughlin, the jazz rock guitarist, and Brian Jones singing Legals, and John Paul Jones on it as well. I know John Paul Jones, the Led Zeppelin guy. His early career, he did a lot of studio recordings, the studio musician for Andrew Oldham's immediate label. And it was about '64 when the Small Faces started to come on the scene. Ronnie Lane, Plonk Lane, he was in a band called The Outcasts. And in the summer of '64, they supported the Moments at a particular gig. And I don't know if they knew each other before, but that tends to be where the relationship gets reported as starting. And another name who crops up around this time, late '64, he was in a band called Marriott, was in a band called Johnny B. Great and the Quotations. And I've seen references to Phil Collins on drums with that particular band. I've never found a definitive answer, but I think there's a strong probability that Phil Collins was involved with that band probably around the time that Stevie Marriott was. So he was certainly rubbing shoulders with some people who were going to be household names.
Megastars, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And, as the Small Faces story carries on, at the beginning of January, Stevie Marriott was working in a music shop called J60, and he met in Manor Park, and he met Jimmy Winston there. So, the band's really starting to come together now. And they performed their first gig on the 6th of May, '65. But again, that very nearly didn't happen because a month or so earlier, he'd auditioned for a band called The Lower Third. But he lost out to another guy who became quite famous, David Bowie. So again, if he got the lead singing gig, guitar gig with The Lower Third, once again, there might well not have been a Small Faces. And it's interesting how Bowie and Stevie Marriott's paths cross a couple of times.
That's incredible, that, because you wouldn't associate Bowie, would you? You really wouldn't. Now, Neil Broderick, I'd love you to answer this, which you can, like, if you want to leave it for another day. My question to everyone: you're on a trip to Mars and you can only take 3 albums. I would take Dark Side of the Moon, AJ Alchemy. That's a cracker. And Lee Brady actually says, hang on. Lee Brady says, okay, I'd say Gary Newman Telecon album, Oasis Greatest Hits album, and a photo album of the family. That's a cracker, that.
Absolutely.
Good. A photo album. Yeah, brilliant, that. I love that. That's fantastic. Well done, late. I like that. And again, it's he says Gary Newman's story there. It was big-ish, inverted commas, big-ish, in Japan. I went to see Freddie Mercury playing. Newman got swamped in the crowd and was taken backstage. I met Freddie for the first time. Newman didn't like the food there, so Freddie got his driver to take him to a match. True story. Lovely fella. Freddie was so. Isn't that lovely?
That's a great story.
It is. It's a fantastic story. Now, the thing is, and as Mark Kenny says there, Steve Marriott has a brilliant voice, so powerful. Now, it's
absolutely.
With the likes of Bowie, if they would have got together, they were very strong personalities and very strong voices as well. Do you think that, you mentioned Ronnie Lane there. I like Ronnie. I didn't half feel sorry for him when he came out with that diagnosis of MS. And I thought, oh no. And there's like tragedies, isn't there, in the world of music. No one bigger than John Lennon when he was actually murdered,
Yeah, exactly.
So shocked. Like Sam Cooke that time, Sam Cooke. Okay, I'm going to ask you that question with answer. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you to answer the question that Neil Broderick's at the end of the show.
Okay.
Well, can you answer it now? No.
Well, I've got two of the three definitely, and I was just pondering while you were talking on the third one. Okay. So I can give you the two that almost certainly would be there.
Oh no, wait until the end. Yeah, wait until the end because that'll be good. I know one I'd take. Yeah. And it was the very first album I bought. I went with, I saved up for it. It's only a kid. Saved up for it because I loved the Beatles.
Yeah.
So the very first album I bought was Please Please Me.
Oh, right.
And I played it to death.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
Can I just tell you honestly, this is true. When Please Please Me came out as a single, my Uncle Ronnie and our Stevie, they brought me down to buy it. And my mum said, make sure that he, gets what he wants. So, I was a kid. And he says, yeah, all right. So anyway, goes down. But I don't know where we went to get it, to be honest. It could have been Nems or somewhere. Mm. And we went in. And I said, have you got it? Please, please me, please. And that Ronnie, big Ronnie, he's 6 foot up. We once A Tree Grows in Harlem by Jimmy Justice.
Oh, right, brilliant.
And I was just, I couldn't do anything. And I got home and started crying. I said to me, man, get on the place. And they had to go out and get me one. They had to come back with Please Please Me,
Brilliant.
Brilliant. What do you think of that? Jimmy Justice, though. Do you ever remember that?
He had a few hits, didn't he?
Yeah, Jimmy Justice, yeah.
Jimmy Justice,
in Harlem.
Yeah, I remember.
Or the Roads Grows in Harlem, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, Steve Marriott, right, let's get back on track with Steve.
Okay, well, the Small Faces played their first gig on the 6th of May, 65 at Kensington Youth Centre in East Ham. And that's where they got their name. After the gig, Jimmy Winston's girlfriend, I think her name was Annie, was at the gig. And apparently she said to them afterwards, you've all got such small faces. and they decided that they liked that, and that's apparently the background to the name of the band.
Do you know what? You stole me tons of there, because I was going to say the small faces is a very unusual name. Have you got any idea how they got the name? Where did they come from? You just answered it. And that's exciting as well.
That's great. You can imagine us saying it at the end of the gig, can't you, to them?
And, you know, he had a young girl and gave him. I'm wondering if, you know, like as they became, you know, superstars, I wonder if that girl ever thought I gave them that name.
But she didn't copyright it.
Yeah, she must have thought. I'm sorry there, I have to say that.
No, that's right. And the career really started to take off. I mean, it's not the cavern round the corner from you, but in London there was a place called the Cavern in the Town in Leicester Place, and that was they had a residency there for 3 or 4 nights. This is sort of June of '65, and Don Arden, you know, the famous manager, he saw them, liked them, and signed them up in early June and signed them to Decca. So, you know, their career really started to take off in around the September of '65. What You Gonna Do About It was the first hit. And there's another Cliff Richards reference here as well. It was co-written and produced by a guy called Ian Samwell, who was the original guitarist in the Drifters, which were the Drifters that became Cliff Richard and the Shadows. So, you know, his name pops up in various places as well. But by the time they got to their second single in early '66, Sha-La-La-La Lee, Ian McLagan had replaced Jimmy Winston. And that Sha-La-La-La Lee was co-written by Kenny Lynch, which is another name. I mean, he's had a few hits on his own. Yeah. You remember him from the sort of 60s.
You associate Kenny Lynch with Jimmy Starbuck, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. They were great mates. Yeah. They were great mates. And there's this wonderful story about Don Arden. Apparently he was a bit of a hard man. Of course, he's Sharon Osbourne's father. And there's this wonderful story about how he thought that Robert Stigwood, another manager at the time, was trying to steal the small faces away from him. So Arden and 2 or 3 of his large friends went to Stigwood's office, dragged him out onto the balcony and sort of held him down, pointed him down towards the pavement. They were 4 stories up and threatened to drop him, dragged him back into the office and said words to the effect, he told Stigwood, words to the effect, never interfere with my groups again. And I dare say he didn't. Well, he had quite a reputation. Don Arden.
Go away.
And this, well, yeah, it was around the end of December that the Small Faces party company with Don Arden, you know, they weren't getting paid apparently for any of the for the gigs. So, you know, they were broke. So they managed to move from Don Arden via Haddle Davidson organization at the end of '66. And in the February of '67, they signed up to Andrew Loog Oldham and his new Immediate record label. And that was really where they found most of their success after that. Then the first single on Immediate was in the June of '67, Here Comes the Nice. Just agreeing with Mark's comment there. Like they absolutely did push.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to leave out. You know, Mark and Derek.
I think that's what distinguishes the Beatles from everybody else. I mean, you know, they seem to be there at the forefront of just about anything. I mean, they weren't the first group, or not even first Liverpool group, to release a single. But they were the first beat group in October '62 to have a hit single. And they were the second beat group in, I think, about the February with Please Please Me to have the second hit single. One of the early ones after that, before their third hit single, From Me to You, was the Big Three with their first single. You know, they had hits long before people like the Searchers and Jerry and the Pacemakers, which I always thought was quite interesting. Sadly, the Big Three never really...
Because they used to appear on the Iron Door. They were great, the Big Three, and they were big as well. Neil Broderick. I went to watch a Freddie tribute act on a holiday in Cyprus we didn't read the advert correctly because we was drunk. The guy who came on stage was like Big Daddy, about 28 stone, and announced himself as Freddie Mercury. Freddie Mercury. But he belted out some great tunes, though, and was hilarious.
Yeah.
Freddie Mercury. It was the dirty go see Freddie Mercury. You can't make these things up, can you?
No, it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, here's another question for us. Frank and Derek, who are your top 3 singers, bands you like to listen to?
Well, certainly from my point of view, Frank Zappa, Pink Floyd are right up there. I quite like prog stuff as well. People like Van der Graaf Generator, sort of quite getting into some of their stuff at the moment. It's a wonderful thing about Spotify, that you can just play all kinds of stuff in the background when you're beavering away. I love Dylan as well.
Right. No, you're right there, because I play some good tunes myself, and don't laugh at me when I say this. I play a lot of ABBA.
Yeah.
You're looking at me, aren't you? You're giving me these funny looks. But it's just like them, it's a strange
thing. Band. They're a great band.
Yeah, obviously. Go on.
So I was just going to say that they're one of these bands that really work together. I mean, as individuals, they obviously didn't get on. Lots of divorces and fallings out and things. Yeah. But as a band on stage, they really sort of gelled as a band, I thought. I mean, the harmonies are tremendous.
Well. Certainly did. And I tell you who else I listened to. The Killers. I think they're great.
Yeah.
And I was going to say ELO. Rapid Eye Movement. What is it? What is it? Rapid Eye Movement. Rapid Eye Movement. I forget it. Well, talking My Religion.
Yeah.
What's that? I can't think of the bloody names. REM says Mark Kinnish. Thank you, Mark. That's just. They all know. I couldn't think.
Yeah.
I couldn't think.
Well, I find that's why I'm hopeless at quizzes. I often, I know the answer, but I can't recall the name or whatever it is.
REM
as well. I listen.
Losing My Religion is one of my favourite pieces.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the videos as well are fantastic. And Lee Brady says, ABBA, you can't knock it. Me and my granddad used to listen to them on the old cassette tapes around 2000 to 2003 when he passed away. I still listen to them a lot now. Went to see a tribute in the Empire last year. Brilliant. I'd love to see the Voyager Experience in London. Yeah, that'll be, because they got back together, didn't they? Do you know, ABBA, and I've been looking at them on YouTube, and you see Agnetha Falskog, whatever, the blonde girl, who was married to that Bjorn fella. And you see them like up to 1980. 1980. And then just after 1980, when they got divorced, she wasn't the same, that girl.
Oh, right, yeah.
She wasn't the same. And I'm looking at her going, something wrong there. Anyway, that's only on YouTube. And then I put something on the other day, Derek, and it was about Agnetha. And do you know that she had a breakdown and everything? And she had a therapist after the divorce.
Oh, right.
Because obviously it was him who broke it up.
Yeah.
Because, a week after he separated, he was with a girl. You know what I mean? And, so, but he broke her heart, that girl. He broke her heart, unfortunately. But anyway. And as you said about as you said about like listening to, me and Broderick says Fleetwood Mac, my guilty pleasure.
Yes. Yeah, they had an interesting career.
Yeah, and Stephen Snape. REM, Everybody Hates. There you go. Brilliant track. My personal favourite group is UB40. For me, the greatest fusion of black and white musicians there's been. How about that?
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, good comment.
It is a good comment, isn't it?
Hmm.
So, yeah, like the Small Faces, right? So we're in the middle now, and they were having
and it was interesting when they moved from Decca and joined Andrew Oldham on Immediate. There was quite a bit of sort of kerfuffling going on. Decca released their second Decca album, and it was, a lot of outtakes and stuff from the first album. It wasn't really a second album as such. And in fact, the Small Faces actually recommended, I think it was in one of the music presses, to their fans not to buy the Decca album because it was rubbish.
Yeah.
They released it on the same day as the first single, 2nd of June, 1967. The first single on Immediate, Here Comes the Night. So Decca released the album on the same day. And a couple of tracks on the Decca album were also re-recorded and on the first Immediate label album. And what's even more strange is that Andrew Oldham decided that what he'd do was call the first album on Immediate exactly the same as the name of the first album on Decca, the very imaginative Small Faces. So I think there was a lot of people playing a lot of games around that time. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, 1967, you get Itchy Coo Park, possibly their most famous.
I thought that was brilliant when it first came out.
Yeah, it was quite groundbreaking as well. Some of the production techniques they were using there, phasing and stuff, was apparently, right at the forefront of what was going on. And that gave them, it was their 8th UK hit. I mean, they were very successful, the Small Faces. Oh, yeah. In the UK, they only glanced off the American charts. I mean, that was their one and only American hit in early 1968, Itchy Coo Park. But I mean, also then we get to the middle of 1968 and what's got to be their most famous album, Ogden's Not Gone Flake. And with Stanley Ulwin.
Yeah, well, you see, with the Small Faces, as you said, hit after hit, 3 records and the 8 records, I'm sorry, in the charts, obviously. But they never ventured, really, when they made it big, they never ventured out of London. Really?
No.
Never ventured out of London at all.
No, I never saw them. Yeah. I love that mod era. I love the Who and the Kinks as well. I mean, that was a great era, sort of 65, 66.
Now, where's a question for you about the Kinks?
All right.
There's a question. Now, I was told years ago, Derek, that, Waterloo Sunset.
Yep.
He wanted to, he kind of the Mersey Sunset or something. And someone said, I don't know whether it was his manager or even, his brother, or, any member of the band said, well, there's loads of records about Liverpool. So he named it Waterloo.
Oh, right. Yeah, I haven't heard that story. But
I was told that.
Yeah, and they were a London band as well, so it's more logical.
Yeah, they were.
Muswell Hill, I think.
About Liverpool, yeah.
Yeah.
It's good though, isn't it? Like when you get into the likes of these particular bands and songs and everything else, and even the names, I'm made up of what you said there. That girl saying, haven't you got Small Faces?
I'd love to have been a fly on the wall there.
Oh, brilliant.
There's a great Liverpool connection to Ogden's Not Gone Flake as well, because of Ogden's Tobacco Company, founded in 1860 by Thomas Ogden, took over when he died in 1890 by his 2 sons. And it was 1899. They built the offices and factory of Boundary Lane in Everton. So, and because they had a few businesses across Liverpool, pulled them together there. And Ogden sold it in 1901 to the American Tobacco Company for the equivalent today of £92 million.
Wow.
So it was obviously a going concern. But interestingly enough, a couple of years or a year later, it was back in British hands when the Imperial Tobacco Company formed. They became the owners of that. And very, very successful company until apparently about 2006, when tobacco sales started to seriously decline. And around that time, they announced they were ceasing production at Boundary Lane, at Grade 2 listed building, as you probably know. They put it up put it up for sale, and Liverpool Mutual Homes bought it in 2016. They kept the office block and tower because it's probably listed. But apparently the factory's been demolished to make way for affordable homes. So a good opportunity to live on a site which is very much a little piece of history.
Oh, this is what I mean. You know, I go mad. I'm a specialist on architecture.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, and these are town planners or city planners. And it's where money can be generated.
Yeah.
And they just knock them down and just build whatever they want to build. Yeah. That's not going to last anyway, if you know what I mean. Oh, it's like taking a very strong stone building and building, you know, a building next to it, like with paper mache. It doesn't last. It doesn't last. And I've always said that. Always. Lee Brazy, I don't know if you ever heard Lewis before. You know, he says, have you heard of Lewis Capaldi before? Brilliant singer, but seen a video of him recently at Glastonbury where he was struggling to sing with, I think, Tourette's stroke tics. And so the audience helped him along. Great, he is taking a break to try and work on his problems' health. Isn't that brilliant? The audience, you know, helped him along.
Yeah, that's great.
It's so sad, isn't it? You know, these bloody diseases. What we have.
Well, it's like Ronnie Lane with his MS, wasn't it?
Shut up.
Because he went on after the Small Faces to form his own band in the early 70s called Slim Chance. I got one of their albums, really, really good. I really like it. I really like him. I thought he's really good.
I thought that's what I was going to ask you before as well. Do you know when they got together, the Small Faces, that is?
Yeah.
Did he do much singing? What I mean, or was it just Steve Marriott? Because he was a good guitarist, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. They did a lot of co-writing together as well. So a lot of the songs they co-wrote. They had I think a strong relationship in all kinds of levels. But I mean, for the Small Faces, really, it started to fall apart in '69. I mean, so much changed. In 1969, at one point you've got Woodstock in the August, and then you've got Altamont in the December, and between them they really I think epitomise the end of the 60s and the end of the sort of hippie dream and the 60s values, and so many other bands are sort of fallen away at the end of the 60s as well. And the Small Faces was one of them, and apparently. Well, not apparently. It's a gig on the Christmas Eve. Steve Marriott actually walked off stage at Alexander Palace. That was 68, actually, rather than 60. It was 31st December 68. So it was, well, when he stormed off stage, of course, had he been top of the bill, it would have been 1969. And they did carry on, get back together. They did their last recording sessions together in the January of '69 for a French guy called Johnny Halliday. They were backing musicians on that. with Peter Frampton was there as well. So there's a lot of, well, you can see where it's going now with Peter Frampton, because they released their last single and split up in the March, and of course in the April Frampton and Stevie Marriott formed Humble Pie. I think one of the really underrated rock and roll bands. I mean, listen to their stuff is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, Humble Pie were good.
Oh, I thought they were brilliant. I mean, the bassist was a guy called Greg Ridley from Spooky Tooth, another great band from the late 60s.
But there's a Spooky Tooth.
Oh yeah, the great band.
There's a
Oh, they were checking out, Frank. Well worth checking out. if only to see the album covers.
Yeah.
And a guy called Jerry Shirley, the drummer. I don't really know much about him, to be honest. He came from a band called Little Women. But interestingly enough, like most bands do, they weren't together all that long. They were more critically related than had financial success. But down the line, it's Jerry Shirley that actually came to own the name of Humble Pie. Not sure exactly how that came along, but he managed to get the legal rights to the name, because that's often one of the real stumbling points. Like when the Pink Floyd, well, they didn't split up. I mean, Roger Waters went, and they fought over the name of Pink Floyd, and the band won. And I think part of the settlement was that Roger Waters kept the rights to the Wall, so which has been performed several times relatively recently. Yeah,
my daughter, she goes all over to see him. She's been down to London. She went up to Manchester the other week. The other week to see him. She loves it. But I should bring this in, but I like his political views. I just think he's great. I love the man, for his comments about certain issues and whether people like his the problem with his issues, or I love him for his lovely issues. What about this? Stephen Snape. If ever there's a karaoke on in a boozer, sometimes if we're out, Frank Carlyle, I'll sing some tracks from UB40. You'll be surprised. You'll discover why I'm a copite. I was a professional choir boy for 5 years in the late 60s, early 70s. I fell in love with the sound of our fans in 71 at Wembley against Arsenal. And that's great. He's a kid, obviously, he's just a kid. But this is the way you get into music, isn't it? Because you're not going to believe this. As I was growing up, with Puccini's Nessun Dorma. Do you know that?
Oh, absolutely.
All the Italian and classical music as well. That's what I grew up with. And it's a good thing to have a background of classical, because I play a lot of classical music, and so it's great to have that. And the other day, I had a little bit of classical on. I had the 1812 Overture on Tchaikovsky.
Oh, that's great.
And I just sat back, and when I stopped playing, I put ABBA on. Fantastic. But you know what the first thing I put on?
Dancing.
Paranoia.
Well, there's a nice contrast.
What a contrast,
Yeah.
From Swan Lake to the 1812 Overture to Paranoia. Absolutely brilliant. So, what do you reckon of when they were coming up to break up? How come they did? Was the arguments? I just don't know. I haven't a clue how they broke up. All of a sudden, they blank, gone.
Well, the Small Faces themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the band had just really run its its course. You get look. They will probably look. I mean, music was changing an awful lot by the time we get to 1969. Psychedelia was coming along. Metal was on the horizon. Glam was on the horizon. So it might well be that the inside the band there was quite a lot of disagreement as to where they were going. I think it was just a sort of natural thing that happens to 9 out of 10 bands really as they mature, because they were interesting. They didn't really come out of the beat era, the very beginning. They would, if you like, the bridge. The mod scene, people like Small Faces, The Who and the Kinks, they were very much the bridge between the early beat groups that came out of the early 60s and the rock bands, the likes of Cream, Jimi Hendrix, Jefferson Airplane, Doors on the other side of the water, that emerged in sort of 66, 67. I mean, 66 is another massive sea change in rock and roll history, as it were. And I think 69 was when music really started to fragment. So you had lots of subgenres. Because really, before, certainly before the 60s, there was rock and roll. And in that sort of idiom, there weren't a lot of subgenres of rock and roll. I mean, R&B was like a completely different background. But when you get to the beat music, it very quickly, it really, you could argue, arrived in back end of 65, beginning of 66 with bands like the Cream and Jimi Hendrix. I think we were slightly ahead of the Americans with that. But then by 67, you've got psychedelia really starting to motor, and blues, jazz rock fusion. People like McLaughlin were very much Chick Corea. Were very Weather Report. They were very much coming to the fore in the latter part of that time as well. So I've never actually seen, a definitive, this was the big fallout they had or anything. I think to me, it just looks as though it was a slow decline, as it were. But I mean, Humble Pie was interesting because, I mean, they started very much with Andrew Loog Oldham still on the Immediate label, and the first album and single and stuff were on Immediate. But what happened is another thing was running in the background as well, which might have had an impact on the Small Faces, because Andrew Oldham, of course, went bust in 1970. Immediate Records were declared bankrupt because what had happened when not John and Paul, when Mick and Keith had their drugs bust, he was very concerned about being drawn into it, Andrew Oldham, and he decided that the discretion being the better part of valor, he took himself off to off to America, and helped to organize the Monterey Pop Festival. Wow. And after that, he sold his interest in the Rolling Stones to Alan Klein. That's when Alan Klein came in. And that was when the Stones realized that they didn't actually own their back catalogue. When they'd signed up with Andrew Oldham, he'd signed his record production company were the ones that had the record deal with Decca, and they sort of leased the tapes back, as it were. So when Alan Klein took over, the Rolling Stones discovered they didn't actually own any of the material up until that point. I don't think they still do, but that's when they discovered that you need to read a lot more of the small print when you're signing management deals. So when Andrew Oldham came back in sort of 67, 68, he was really then he pretty much finished with the Stones. I think he had finished with the Stones. So then he was focused on his record label, Immediate. But over the next couple of years, he had more misses than hits. And he went bankrupt in 1970. So, of course, Stevie Marriott now is looking for a new manager. And he got involved with a guy called D'Antoni, who apparently is a little bit on the fringes of ganglandom, allegedly. And he changed their direction as well, which is probably why Peter Frampton left, because they weren't that successful commercially. Their first album was a hit. But it wasn't until their fourth album that they had their next hit album, Rock On. and that was the last one with Peter Frampton. That was in 71. So you can see from 69 through to the spring of 71. They weren't being all that commercially successful. Then a guy called Clem Clempson from Coliseum, Bakerloo, he replaced Peter Frampton, and then they had a couple more hits. They had their last hit album with Eat It, and what was interesting there was they brought in a backing group called the Blackberries to give him more R&B flavour. And I've been listening, preparing for this chat. I've been listening to quite a lot of Humble Pie, some of which I haven't heard for a while. And when it was running in the background. It was a sort of compilation thing on Spotify. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. It had its real R&B flavour. And then I'd look at what I was listening to, the actual track, and then discovered it was from the one of the albums that the Blackberries had been involved with. And it had a really noticeable difference. I mean, I've really got probably more into the Humble Pie than I was before. You get sort of immersed in a band sometimes, not always, but sometimes they just go up and up in your estimation. And just another snippet that I thought was quite fascinating. In Ronnie Wood's book, he tells a story of how when he first joined the Stones, Keith Richard sat down with him, and he told Ronnie Wood that when we were replacing Mick Taylor, actually my first choice was Steve Marriott.
No way.
So in another parallel universe, what the Rolling Stones with
the Stones.
Steve Marriott in.
I can't get over Bowie. The Stones there.
Yeah, but I think they were just looking more for a guitarist than they were for another vocalist, which is probably why it didn't go that way. But you can really see Steve Marriott fitting in as a Rolling Stone, I think. Really.
Yeah, most certainly. I just want to answer a few, please out a few comments if you don't mind, Derek.
Oh, absolutely.
Lee Brady says, hey, Frank, was the band The Farm have a connection to Everton? My partner was saying they sung for the Blues, but I was disagreeing, as I remember them playing in front of the last standing cop with the cast of Brookside. Yeah, you're right. They're not Blues. I know Peter Hooton, and he's a massive Red. He really is. I think it was about Wembley or something with a connection. I'm not quite so sure. Let's see. I've heard that story about the Kinks, Frank. I've not heard any confirmation. Merseyside Sunset, says Charlie Wood. Says Charlie. It's like, Frank, those black buildings at Man Islands should never have been built, as I know. You'll agree. I will totally agree. Peter Hooton, says Neil Broderick, lead singer is a big Red. They remastered all together now for the Everton's trip. Thank you. I had an idea that it was for the Everton, to be honest. It was. I've got to let you go. There's something. Love a bit of Zappa, Derek.
Oh, good man. Oh, it just brings me then to the question you asked me, Frank. Which 3 albums will I take with me?
Yes, I was going to ask.
It'd be Floyd's Wish You Were Here, Dylan's Highway 61, and Zappa's Joe's. Now, Zappa's difficult. Anybody who's into Zappa, picking an album is tricky because they're all so different. But one I do love, one of the more accessible ones, is Joe's Garage. And it's just Thing Fish might be the other one. It'd be a toss-up between Thing Fish and Joe's Garage. But Zappa would definitely be one. But I would try and sneak a doo-wop compilation under my vest or something, because I just love doo-wop.
It's good.
That compilation.
Yeah. See, you can talk albums, you can talk singles. I remember the EPs. They used to be.
Oh, absolutely.
I thought they were great, them, the EPs, 4 songs on.
Yeah.
But I always remember I went to a function. Ken Dodd asked me to go along to a function and give it, a little talk.
Brilliant.
So anyway, I went along, and you know, who was sitting there. This is it's a thing called the Good Saints, Derek, right? And you know, it's all charity, and they raise money, you know, for those like bus things, mini buses to take, you know, the underprivileged children about, and people with learning difficulties and things, you know, the likes of that. Anyway, I was sitting next. If you could imagine the stage, right? You had a fella on drums going like this, right?
Yeah.
You had another fellow on a guitar, right?
Mm.
And another, I don't know what the other fellow was playing, but he was playing, and that was the band. That was the band. So anyway, I'm sitting there, and he said, Frank, will you get up and give a talk? I said, yeah. So anyway, I got up, give a talk. It's only for 15 minutes or so. And I got down like that. I was sitting, so the little band was going, and he turns around, comes out, right, to Rick Astley. I'm sitting there. And he went, get up. Well, he said, get up, give a song. And he went, I've got no band. He said, there's the band. He said, they play out of key. That's what he said to kids. He said, get up there. And he had to get up and give a song. But he was good.
Yeah.
He was good. The band were awful, like, but he was good. It was incredible. You know, you're going to talk about the next time.
And we did think Badfinger might be a good topic. That'll be an interesting one. What I'll do as well, I'll just have a look if there are any major anniversaries coming up that might be make a good topic. Okay. So I'll liaise with Jason on that one. But I mean, there's so many good topics. I mean,
I didn't like you know, like when it ends. I always like it till it ends on a good note. Right. You know, like Ronnie and Steve, you know, of the Small Faces, and you know, rest in peace, that's all. And as I said, you know, a great band, seen them live, and I just anyway.
Yes, so, definitely do not eat the yellow snow. Don't go where the Huskies go.
Does that?
Yeah, it's yellow. Don't eat the yellow snow as a reference to
Zappa
song. Line from
Zappa. Yeah. I've got a mate, right, and he's in a band, but when he was a lot younger, image of Frank Zappa, and we still call him Zappa today. We call him Zappa.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Because doesn't look like him now, though. He hasn't got the long hair either. He hasn't even got hair like you. Well, what a fella. Derek, thank you.
Oh, I really enjoyed it, Frank. Thanks.
No, will you talk about? I was going to ask you to. No, talk about who you said, and really, what I want you to talk about as well. I know that they're, you know, they're still going and everything else and whatever. There's little known about the individual Stones.
Oh, right.
Brian Ferry and Brian. Could you combine them two? Not when you're on the next time, but the time after.
Well, the Rolling Stones and Brian Ferry.
Yeah. No, I mean separately. You know, I want you to talk about the Stones, and I want you to talk about Brian Ferry because he has one of those distinctive voices.
Yeah.
You know, and he was stylish, wasn't he? You know,
very much so. Yeah.
I remember this girl. Was that Michael's wife? Funny enough, and I was going somewhere. I think I was going to give a lecture. I'm not quite so sure. I was going to give a lecture up Mount Pleasant, you know, around there, Liverpool University. And I seen our Michael and his wife, Anne. And I went, oh, then. And he went, Francis, where are you going? I said, I'm going to give a lecture. And when I looked at her, honestly, she had this like the GI's uniform on. A uniform, you know. I went, what are you dressed like that for? Going to a fancy dress? She said, no, we all dress like that. And that's what they did. The fans used to dress, you know, like I don't know if you know what I mean. And I always remember Jerry Hall dressing up like that as well.
Yeah.
Like, that's it, you know. But I'd love you to come out and say why he dressed like that. I mean, like a uniform. Then he discarded the uniform, obviously. I think Jerry Hall took it all, which he got off from him. But that's another story. But
a great topic for the Stones would be the Brian Jones years, because that's the most interesting. Because then you've got how the Stones came together, and that's a really interesting story. And it's very much Brian Jones's group. I mean, there's some great music with Mick Taylor, but the really interesting part of the Stones story is, you know, the Brian Jones years. We do that next time if you like.
You've got to do that. Can you do Brian Ferry alongside them, if you know what I mean?
On the same show?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, because there's not as much to talk about with Brian Ferry.
Yeah, that's what I'm glad you said that. You know, we can talk about the Stones, but as I said, you know, there's hardly anything, which is strange. You know, it's a strange concoction. But anyway, Derek, I just got to say thank you for saying, and when is it? 1, 2. I think it's in 2 weeks. Jason will let you know.
Okay.
And the Stones and Brian Ferry, would you see that? Who did you say you'd like to do next week, by the way? No,
somebody suggested previously Badfinger. We could do that at some point in the future. Because, I mean, they've got an interesting, very sad story.
The next time after the Stones and Brian Ferry.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. All I've got to say is a big thank you.
My pleasure.
It's just been great. And, you know, people
really enjoyed it.
You know, just before you go, Neil Broderick says Jeff Beck could have been a Stone.
Oh, absolutely.
There you go. How about it? So, you know, it's so great tonight. Oh, yeah. Have we done this, fella?
Who, Jeff Beck? Oh, Billy Fiore. No, we haven't actually. I've often thought that with his, I mean, he is, you know, pre-Beatles. I mean, he's one of the biggest names to come out of Liverpool. You know, we ought to talk about him at some point, I think. Great story.
I'll tell you what, because he's asked, tell you what, will you do him the next show instead of I'll bring Brian Ferry in. You can do Brian Ferry of that. The two B's, Brian and Billy.
Yeah, that'd be better actually, because there's an awful lot to talk about with the Stones. Billy Fiore and Brian Ferry would be quite an interesting contrast to put together on the same show. It'd be brilliant, mate.
Thank you. Oh yeah, absolutely. It's only because of Neil Broderick saying, you know, it's got to be Billy Fiore. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So anyway, Derek, once again, thank you so much, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And we're talking about the Billy Fiore and Brian Ferry.
That'd be fun.
I can't wait. Can't wait.
So I'm halfway to paradise already, mate.
Oh yeah, wait. Hey, you can't get away from that little bit of philosophy.
Exactly.
Well, poor Billy passed on. But anyway, see you in a couple of weeks, and you know, God's willing, we'll have a chat about Brian and the other fella.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Have a good
Thank you so much.
The rest of the show, mate. Cheers.
So I'm just going to play now a clip, right? Historical clip. Hope you enjoy it, and let's have a go at it.
For people who have followed the Liverpool Unravelled series, here's a piece of Liverpool unnoticed. So you've lived in Liverpool all your life and you think you know your own city. Well, what if someone asked you to point them in the right direction for a little piece of Egypt? Where would you tell them to go? Well, right here is the little piece of Egypt when you look at this. We haven't only got one Sphinx, we have four, and they're right here on the grounds of Liverpool University. And imagine this, if Liverpool has its own parliament, this is the building I'd choose to represent Liverpool and its MPs. So come with me and have a look inside. If this was the Houses of Parliament and you were here on May the 11th, 1812, you would have heard two shots ring out. Bang, bang! There was deafening silence, and then chaos broke out. MPs started to realise that Spencer Perceval, the Prime Minister, had just been shot. Not only had been shot, he'd been fatally wounded. Two questions have to be answered. Why would anybody want to assassinate the British Prime Minister, Spencer Perceval? And second, who? Intellectuals like the poets Wordsworth and Blake really thought that this was the first shot of the revolution. Of course it wasn't, but there was one man who had a revolt against the British establishment, and in particular, our British Prime Minister, Spencer Perceval. The assassin was John Bellingham of Duke Street, Liverpool. We have to go back in time to the events leading up to May the 11th, 1812, and that tragic day, because John Bellingham actually traded with Russia, and his Russian agent went bankrupt. And unfortunately for Bellingham, he was thrown into a debtor's prison here, where he spent a few months. On his release, he came out, but went straight over to Russia, where he ordered the Russian government to pay him compensation. Unfortunately for Bellingham, he was thrown in jail there. And on his release from there, he had this terrible, terrible angst against the British government, and in particular, Spencer Perceval. And when he got no joy at all from the British government, because he wanted compensation off them. And unfortunately for him, he was getting no compensation off anybody. He even wrote to the Prince Regent. Prince Regent wrote back saying, "I'm sorry, I can't help." So therefore, what Bellingham did, he acquired 2 pistols, and the plot manifested. Bellingham, on the 11th of May, 1812, went to the Houses of Parliament, and it was there that he jumped from behind a column as Spencer Perceval, the British Prime Minister, was walking down to take his seat, and he shot him. There were two local MPs who knew Bellingham. One was George Gascoigne and the other Bannister Tarleton, and it was they who apprehended Bellingham until he was arrested. Bellingham was tried and convicted of the crime and actually hanged at Newgate Prison exactly 1 week later on the 18th of May, 1812. We've only ever had one assassination of a British Prime Minister. Through sheer frustration and circumstance, Bellingham became the ultimate in political villainy by assassinating the British Prime Minister, Spencer Perceval.
What do you think of that? What did you think of that? Hey, what did you think? It's incredible, you know, some of the history that goes out, and you know, some of the first prime minister to be assassinated was by a Scouser, and he was a Scouser as well, Sir Spencer Perceval, because his ancestral home was the White Mansion House up in Calderstones, and he wanted to knock it down, didn't he, a few years ago, until we stepped in. Anyway, you know, it's still there. It's still there. If you looked at that clip and you see the roof, not the roof, the ceiling, it's a museum now, but it wasn't then, you know, but it was, you know, whatever. And we're being an old boy, I said, can I film there? He went, yeah. When do you want to? I said, Sunday. Yeah. Went to him, filmed that, which was great, you know, it was great. But if you notice that ceiling, the wood, see the wood? Well, the fella who built it, or designed it, the fella who designed it was Sir Alfred's Waterhouse. And Sir Alfred's Waterhouse, he was just a great architect, because he always had taken great inspiration from other people's work, which everybody does. Every profession, you get inspired, even when you're at school. You have a role model. You always have a role model. You get some, you know, people today who's, you know, you see like how diverse they are between different people, and some of them have got good role models, and some of them ain't got good role models, if you know what I mean. Anyway, he's at the ceiling, and he went in because where he was down in London, around there. Then he went up to Hampton Court, and he looked at the ceiling, and he loved it, and he said, I'm going to put that in a building I'll design. And there you see it, Liverpool Uni. How about that? Hampton Court. So if you go in there and have a look up, you think you're in Hampton Court. Great. So I'm just getting messages here, left, right, and centre. So listen, when you look at the, you know, when you look at our history, I always remember people saying to me, why don't you go into school? Or no, you know, go into schools or whatever. And, you know, because people should know, kids I'm talking about, these kids should know about their history, Liverpool history. And what you've been saying all these years, you know, it's second to none. And I agree. The amount of people that came here through the years, it's incredible. It's absolutely, whether the sportsmen, whether even presidents of the United States come on to be presidents, that is, all passing through Liverpool to get to America. Oscar winners, you name it, lived here for a while. And one fellow was a big robber. big knobhead. And he was Butch Cassidy. I always forget Butch Cassidy's real name. He was a Mormon. And he stayed here for a while in Liverpool while, the passage, his family got the passage, enough money to get over to America. I think he did a little bit of pilfering as well to try and get the fare up and running, if you know what I mean. So, these people, they're unbelievable that came through. And this is what it's all about, history, connections with every. Did you know that we had an Armenian community in Liverpool? Armenian. People don't realise that. We had a massive Norwegian community. And it's things like that. Even a Japanese community up in Guild Street, which became Guild Street, that is. There was a Japanese community, which is great when you think about it, all these communities. But the only communities that, grab the attention of the Irish, the Italians, it's true though, isn't it? These two groups of people, the Jewish people and the Africans at a later date, which is unbelievable. See that, but the Chinese was the very first foreign community in 1826 in Pitt Street. Chinese. So you've got that. You've got loads of. And I always remember this lady when they were coming up to the capital of culture, and the Echo, I think it was looking for a little quirky thing, and she came out, and I think it's one of the best ever. The world in one city. Can't beat that. I think it's lovely, absolutely lovely. But as I said, I'm going to show you now, all you wonderful people, a couple of. Hope Jason's there to put them on. A couple of pictures, and I want you to. Where is it? I think he's going to make a cup of tea, so I'll have to put them on. Okay. And we have to thank Stephen Garner for these, because Stephen Garner is a great photographer, and he goes around and he takes unusual photographs, to be honest. So let me know where you think these are, people. Well, Mark Innes says the one on the left, I think it's the Philharmonic Pub. Okay. Anywhere else? Anything else? Come on, you must know. Must know. Okay, I'll have to tell you. Thanks, Mark, for having a go. Thanks for having a go. The Big House, Lime Street. That's what it's known as, the Big House. It's called the Vines officially. The Vines. Look at that. Isn't that fantastic? Isn't that fantastic? There's the old bridge across the Mersey. But you don't see that. Right? but you don't see that anymore. No, it is there. It's still there because it's a part of our heritage. It really is. Our heritage is amazing. And just look at that. Absolutely fantastic. It really is. So you can't get the other one. Let's go back. You can't get that one. The lion. Give you a few minutes to get it. Just while I get a cup of water. If you're still right. Drink of water. Okay. I'll just go to the messages, okay. Amazing story that, Frank. Scouts are standing up for what's right. Just like nowadays. I think we are the only city in the country to stand up against the Prime Minister and any parliament for what's right. And they hate us for it. Probably going back to the days of 1812, obviously. Didn't have to kill him then, but you know what I mean, of course. Of course. There's a big story to it, you know. I've given a big long lecture about John Bellingham. 2.5 hour lecture. And what it boiled down to. And as Lee says, looks like a view from Eastham. Well, I was taking over the water, looking over, to be honest. And Mark Kelly says, love the zone there. The big, yes, it's great, Mark. It really is, the zone in the big house. Lee Brady, Victoria Monument. Lynn Ellis, Town Hall, Old Law Court. Okay. Yeah, I'm wondering if it's the Town Hall too, says Mark Kinney. And County Sessions House. Good, that, isn't it? Yeah. It's good. Got to show you where it is. I'll show you where it is. Or it could be around the old museum. I'm going to show you now where it is. That's the big house. That's the old bridge. And Lynn Ellis says, it's a good point actually. She says, the lion threw me. I don't know where the lion threw you. Did he get us in you? Was you in his jaws? Throwing you there? Only joking. Only joking, Lynn. And there it is. You're going to go, oh. The goddess of wisdom and the clock and the lion. 2 lions on the thing. And they have to thank Steve Garner for all these photographs that were on. Great. Absolutely great. And while I'm here, I've just got to thank Gap Painting Services for sponsoring the Frank Carlyle Show. And it's domestic, it's commercial, painting, decorating, time-served lads, clean, tidy, fully insured, everything. Everything about these lads. And they are the first class. You have to move furniture and everything, whatever, 3-piece suites, and if they're doing the kitchen, the living room, and no paint anywhere. All clean, and they put everything back. All clean. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So that's the sponsors of the Frank Carlyle Show. Domestic and commercial gap painting services. If you're OHP, brilliant discount. If you're an NHS worker, brilliant discount. Brilliant discount. If you need any painting and decorating done. Right, so let's get back to this. Oh, we've got to talk about this place here as well. The Oldie. And if you want a good night out on Thursdays, there's live bands, there's raffles, there's great singers, there's a spot the ball as well. It's great. Meet friends, meet old friends, meet new friends. The alcohol is very, very reasonable up there than it is for a Glastonbury, if you know what I mean. So, just have a try and have a go at that every Tuesday. It's on tonight now, as we speak. No, it's not. It's on tomorrow night as we speak. The podcast. The podcast. Tomorrow night. Right. That was good, that. Or could it be around the old music? I like that. I like these. What it is, the line through me, yeah. It's great. Stephen Snape says the regurgitated diatribe aimed at Liverpool is born of envy. She's loud and proud and often proved right. It manifests itself in the derision of the establishment. A natural reaction, really. Thank you. That's a cracker. Whereabouts is the last photo, Frank? I have seen it before, but can't think where it is. So you know now, don't you? Like Town Hall. The Town Hall. I agree, Town Hall. It does look like the Lion Town Hall. Yeah, that's right, it is, because it's up there. It's up there, Mark. Which is great, Anyway, I'm starting to do some filming on the 2nd of August. 2nd of August, be filming. And I think that it'll be made up with it. I'll say made up with me, like, it's about Liverpool, It's not about the football club. It's about Liverpool. And then novelist, just say that. Novelist. He loved Liverpool. So I'll be talking about him when we start filming on the 2nd of August. So that's what's all lines up. That's all lines up. Is it? No. This is for Channel 5. And I think you'll like it. This is what's happening. And I've got to be there early in the morning. I hope it's not raining. I hate rain. Hate rain. Just hate it. I really do. I was looking at something And it caught me eye. It caught me eye about our history. And what it was about the Americans coming over. But it wasn't like during the Civil War. It was long before then. Long before then. And it was about James Morey, a fellow by the name of James Morey, spelt M-A-U-R-Y, James Morey. And James Morey he really was an Irishman. And he came over to Liverpool to get to America, which he did. And he got to America. And during, after the 1774 Declaration of Independence, then 2 years later, the war started. So anyway, the Americans, Washington said, and Thomas Jefferson, they said, look, we'll have to look after our interests over there. We've got to send someone. So anyway, they asked for James Morey. So James Morey came to see them. And they said, we want you to go to Liverpool. He said, I don't want to go to Liverpool. What do I want to go to Liverpool for? He said, well, you know it well, because you were there. You know it. And we want you to go. And, they told them what they wanted them to go for. So anyway, he came over. And when you think about 1792, he came over. So 1791. So he came over and he went into a Georgian place, a nice Georgian place, where he put this consulate up for the American sailors and whoever else, the interests. That's why the war was going on over there, for the Declaration of Independence of 1776. Anyway, he set it up. And then after a few years, when Rodney Street was built, he went up there to live, albeit the consulate was still there. I'll tell you where the consulate is facing John Lewis. And you see the eagle outside. That's the American eagle. And that's where the consulate was, right there. Incredible history, incredible. Because they were knocking places down during the Liverpool 1 era. They were building. As you know, I was the consultant for them. And I said, you can't knock that. Why? I told them, no, okay, can't. And then they wanted to knock down as well other places. I said, you can't do that. These are significant for the sake of Liverpool. So he said, okay, we won't knock that down. And it's incredible because when you think, if you go through Keys Court, they knocked it through, they knocked it through to get to the back, into their school lane, college lane, sorry, to get into the back there and then into Liverpool 1. Because they wanted to knock it down, that particular part. I said, don't do that. Don't do that. I said, can you do something else? He said, yeah, okay. So when they said, why not knock it down? I said, because, you've got great buildings. And the architect was Gerald de Courcy Fraser. I said, you can't just knock one of his buildings down. So anyway, they decided to knock through and go through, make a sort of passageway, which they did. And when I told them what was on the top of the building, Gerald de Courcy's building, I said, you'll see why you can't knock it down. And I was at a meeting with them, and he sent a fella out. He said, take a photograph at the top, because I told them what it was. And he came back. He has one of these big cameras, you know. Like you see the tablets today, take a photo, and there it is. Well, here's a camera, bang, come back. And see, what was there was keys and a mitre, you know, bishop's mitre. Because that is where St. Peter's Church was. And when you look closely on the floor as well, you see the cross. That's where the altar was. So, you know, everything was geared up. And he said, what's your... And anyway, you know, cut a long story short, I actually named that walkway through. And it's called, I don't know, I forget what I called it. I forget what it... Would you believe it? Keys Court. Forgot. But anyway, it's called Keys Court. So anytime you're walking through there, you know, by the clock on Lord Street, Church Street, I'm sorry, and you see Keys Court, you'll always name it, which I'm very proud of. Very proud. It's only by fluke, though, you know, to be honest. It's only by fluke. And you see these, you know, I'll be filming soon. You will smash it, Frank, says Lynn Ellis. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you so much. Frank, we spoke about the old building that looked like an old terraced house, Old Door Street. I think you saved it. Yeah, not just me, you know, but yeah, what had happened, they wanted to lock it down, and that was the canal keepers. Well, you know, he was really the waterway keepers, and it was their little cottages they were, and they saved them. They're there. See, I've always said you can blend in old with new, but the new's got to be in. It's got to be in unison. It's got to be. It's just building a building, and you know, looks terrible. And it is, you know, around the ends of Old Street. You've got the big Radisson Hotel, and it's absolutely smashing. Absolutely smashing. It's one of those things when you're walking about and you see like unusual things, and you say to yourself, I wonder who built that, or well, how long has that been there? And there's loads of things like that. What I'll do for next week, because I've got Anthony Brown on with me next week, the great artist. Got him on, but I'll have more pictures. I'll have more pictures to show, and then you can guess where they are. But there are some pictures that you'll see, and it's like Lynn Ellis there. Like she was saying, is that there? And Mark Kennett, wow, is that there? And even Lee Brady, you know, and this is what I like you to look at, you know, certain things. I like you to guess as well, especially next week, to where you think they are. Where you think they are. Okay. You named Keys Court and the streets around there, Frank. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I know it's good. Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for that. I remember that, Frank, because I remember HMV used to be there. Then a few weeks later, that was gone. Yes. And this big hole was opened up in the walkway. Yes. Paul Bay. Stop it, Frank. You've been the Muncie Club. You remember everything. I remember going down Chapel Street. And if you look at the Racket Club, people always said to me, you know, when they look up and you see these Spanish, Italian, and, you know, little heads all around. and it was the eye. I said, well, what do you think this was here? So James Picton built it, by the way. Well, designed it. And he wanted to like put something exotic there. Something exotic. And everyone said, oh, the Italian embassy or Spanish embassy, no. And it was just Harrington Buildings. That's all it was. It was just offices. Now the racket clubs there. So you get these little things, little foibles, especially about Liverpool and the buildings. They're superb. They really are superb. But unfortunately, some planners just want to just go. Stephen Snape says, it's early departure for me, Frank. I'll be around tomorrow for the seminar, otherwise known as the Liverpool Football Club podcast. Good night, one and all. Stay safe, everyone. Auf Wiedersehen, says Stephen Snape. Good night, Steve. And we'll all talk about football. Footy. I think the Pig and Whistle down the road from there. Yeah, the Pig and Whistle, yeah. Very famous. Very famous. No dogs, no Irish, no blacks. That pub. Mad, innit? Mad, innit? So if you were Irish or you were a black seafarer, you weren't allowed in. They used to have it outside. None of it. No. Just not. I agree with Frank. You don't mind them buildings and new buildings, but yes, they need to blend in well with the old buildings. There's no excuse if they put their minds. Yeah, they will. Yeah, absolutely. If they put their minds to it, because you can't just like put something there that'll look out of place. Well, as Lee Brady said about, just going in and demolishing things, and you just cannot, or we cannot allow it anymore. But unfortunately, you could be looking at a building one morning, get up the next morning, and it's gone. That's the way they are. That's the way they are. Pingwall Hall. Ken Dodd said to me, I'm going to have a museum of laughter there. And it was torched twice. I think it was arson myself. So they had to pull it down in the end after the second fire. And it was a beautiful, beautiful building. And that's the way it is. It's so annoying. So annoying. But on a lighter note, I'm still here. Still here. You see, like Charles Dickens came to Liverpool, right? And what people don't know is that he was an amateur actor. He's an amateur actor. And he plays in a play in the Theatre Royal. That was in Williamson Square. It became the ice storage place, and they pulled it down, the theatre, instead of leaving it. They're fantastic. That would have been fantastic where it was. It's where Williamson Square, it's right by where they built Liverpool Football Club shop. A shop. A couple of shops going a long way. Just imagine that being there with, with the stone cleaned just like St. George's Hall. This magnificent rounds of theatre. Think about that. Just get rid of them. Just get rid of them. I see that people, when they look at these particular buildings and they wonder where, who built them or what year they built them. But you get other people who don't give a toss. Looking at beautiful buildings, let's get rid of it. And they do. They do. Unless someone steps in and saves them. And that's the problem with some people, Wish they did that years ago, Mark, when they had the castle. I'm sure I remember reading they built a church where the castle was. Then they knocked it down for the monument. Yeah, you're right. What had happened? They built the castle in approximately 1230, something like that. And when it was built, in approximately that time. Anyway, it was built nevertheless. And then in 1724, he decided to knock it down. And people were saying, what for? It was the first building in Liverpool, first proper building in Liverpool. Anyway, protesters were there. You're talking 1724. 1824. 1724. Talking about. And they knocked it down. They knocked it down and built a church, St. George's Church, on the grounds. It was 1824. So anyway, they knocked it down, and the castle, and they asked John Foster Jr. to build a church, and he did. St. George's, beautiful church. So they decided to knock that down in 1898. I'm trying to think. No, 1724 that was pulled down. 1724, the castle. Anyway, that church was built by John Foster Jr. And unfortunately, they pulled that down and they built the monument in honour of the Queen, Queen Victoria. Don't forget, she'd been on the throne since Moses gave her a brick or something. Incredible age she was. So they built this monument dedicated to her because she was about to give up the throne. She was a very old lady. And he said, let's build something before she goes out, if you know what I mean. And they did. They built the church and they knocked that down in 1896. 1896 to make way for the monument. So they built that instead. So you get things, lots of things that are put in place for the likes of non-entities. I'll call them non-entities. And they're shocking. Really are, they're shocking. But you get people who try to preserve stuff. Steve Garnett, for example, photographer of those photos. He's always active about demolition, whatever. And that's the way it is. That is the way it is, unfortunately, with this city. But at least what we do have, we have a fantastic historical culture, whether it includes buildings, whether it includes entertainment, whether it includes sports. I was talking to someone and he was talking about the Olympics, just came up the Olympics. I said, do you know that we had the first Olympics here in Liverpool? And he went, oh, behave yourself. I said, we did. I said, we did. A fella named John Ully, he got everyone together with this French fella. So they decided to have the games in Wavertree Park. Anyway, they had the games. But what they had, like the following Olympic game, that was in, when was it? 1864, something like that. And no, 1848 it was. So anyway, they started to come down, you know, like each year, or people are coming in. But the unfortunate thing was that these people, you know, there was no stands or, you know, stadiums to go in. Tug of war was in the Olympics. Tug of war. Just little mad things, you know. But it was, nevertheless, it was the Olympics. And pickpockets and prostitutes started to go into, you know, these wonderful people looking at just standing there looking at the Olympic Games. But anyway, that was scrapped, and it wasn't until 1896, the Olympics in Paris, France. Signing out now, says Jane Divers. Oh, first time tuning into your show. Will definitely do so again. Very interesting. Oh, thank you, Jane. Thank you so much. Really love it. Should have thing before. You should have put a comment up there saying the first time. Like this will all just being left to ruin. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now the owners have no plans for keeping the price up too high for anyone to buy it. Now all the architecture and amusing paintings they left up, all smashed and vandalised. It's in a terrible state, probably waiting for another fire, for an excuse to knock it down. More history gone. Why doesn't the council help? It's part of this city. Anything that costs money, no help. No help, please. And that's the problem with people. You know, we try to preserve, but you're overruled. And it's shocking. It really is. It's shocking. Once you're overruled, you can't do anything about it. You can't do anything about it. Lynn Ellis, I've seen that when I've passed it, but haven't stopped to look properly. Need to get time off. Oh, hang on. Need to get time to take up outside the car. I bet there with 5. Been there, done it. On one of my DVDs, I think it was Liverpool Unseen. I'm not quite so sure. Yeah, I think it was Liverpool Unseen. We were the first to get into the dock, the very first, as they were excavating it, because how can I say this? The archaeologist, she was a Liverpool girl, but was trained at Oxford. She went to Oxford. And I was asked to go down to try and locate where the castle was. So they were digging. I said, no. I said, that's not the castle there. And what they were digging and finding bricks and things was the old custom house. I said, no, that's the custom house there. I said, it's over there, just further over the top, just by here. So anyway, they dug down and they found it. And that Liverpool archaeologist hadn't been back for a few years, but anyway, she came over at Lazy Old Merseyside. She said, is Frank there? I said, yeah, you know. Anyway, she said, I was mentioning your name because she was staying with her mum, you know, while she was doing the job up here, the archaeologist, or the archaeology. And she says, I was just talking to my mum and I says, we had a chap who located the thing, you know. He's a lecturer, no, historian, local historian. And she went, would that be Frank Carlyle? And she said, yeah. Do you know him? She said, yeah. I don't know him personally, but I listen to him. So it's things like that. But at least we filmed it. And as I said, I was the historical consultant for Liverpool. Well, someone mentioned the time team. I think it was Lee Brady. And the time team, they were there at the same time as us filming. And as Grace, the Duke of Westminster, who folded Liverpool 1, he's seen the DVD, what we did, or the filming, you know, because they showed him, the rushes and that. And he actually seen the time team one on the telly. And he says, ours was far better. True that. Because we went into the depths. Time team didn't. We went into the natural dock itself. The 1715 one. Brilliant. I wonder if a good fund me page to help to bring the hall back. Yeah, there's a lad named Jonathan Weil. Contact him. He's good, Jonathan. I'm in his group, but I never go. I put a thing up of our baby today because I hardly do any comments or excuse me, or put posts up. I hardly do it anymore. But I put our baby up. Sophia, you know, them little memories you get. Lovely. Lovely. And talking about the Lee, I had a group of people, I'll go back a few years ago, really a few years ago. I had a group of people around the monument. And we went down into the war rooms. And what just waiting for the people to come out. There was these two fellas there. They went, you Frank? I said, yeah. He said, how would you like to see things? I said, what do you mean? He said, you know, how would you like to look at things that you... He said, brilliant, yeah, love it. Where? And he said, it's at 4:15 here. And that was outside the monument. So I said, okay. So anyway, I was there for 4:15. They were standing there waiting. And they were surveyors. And we went right down. We went into a building, went right down. And we found the foundations of the castle. Believe it. So that was that. It's all there. Because you can't get rid of a stamp, if you know what I mean. It's already made a stamp. So when you look at the Victoria, when you look at the... So sorry. I had no sleep. And when you look at the, when you actually look at the monument, just think that the foundations of the castle still there. And from the castle, there's only been 3 buildings, you might as well say buildings, mightn't you? 2 buildings in that monument. 3 structures, should have said. 3 structures. Well, people, I'm absolutely knackered. Really am. I don't know what's wrong. And I'll just go on to these. I remember seeing that Time Team episodes with Tony Robertson, says Lee, and Phil Harding digging at the Albert Dock. Not seeing the one you did, Frank. Where could I see it? It's on one of my DVDs. It's on what? I think it's on Liverpool Unseen. You'll be able to Google it. Great show again, Frank, says Charlie. Well, thank you, Charlie. Thank you so much. See you Thursday. To hold you back, says Mark. Yeah, we're going on a walk, yeah. I just hope it's not that I will not go for training. But anyway, you have these people going on a little historical walk, which is great. They should open that up, you know, Frank, and bring more interest to the city. People would love to see the foundations of the castle. Well, I'm going back a few years, and a lot's been done, said, and everything else, I don't think. Be great to borrow the DVD when I take you to the game this season. Thank you. Me and Lee Brady going again. So anyway, I'm going to end it there. I'm absolutely knackered. And it's just nice, you know, to is it all here. So Jeanette, Frank, last Thursday in a museum class, from the class, thought I'd let you know. Very good. Very good, Mark. And Lee Brady, the last one, says, thanks, Frank. Great night, as usual. See you tomorrow. Yeah, so everyone out there, all the football fans, I'm there tomorrow. Podcast, 8 o'clock onwards. Thank you. And there's the little poddy thing for us to get onto. Thank you so much, people. It's been great, but very tired. As I said, I don't get any sleep. And I haven't, honestly, I've been up, I think, since 5:25. And I hardly had any sleep anyway. I had about 2 hours sleep. But nevertheless, I'm here. I'll be back next Monday for the Only the Lonely show, as Charlie Cairn says. I haven't seen Charlie for a while. I hope he's all right. To the Kenzod, says Lee Brady. Get off, Frank. Get to bed, says Mark. Great. Anyway, thank you so much, and I will end here. Without you, you know, I just thank Jason Pennington for the wonderful producing he does. And he does a lot of work in the background, you know, he really does. Also, I'd like to thank Gap Painting Services for sponsoring the show. But most importantly, I'd like to thank you out there. I know I keep saying this, but without you out there, it wouldn't be a show. There wouldn't be anything, to be honest. It wouldn't be anything, and that's the truth. And as Lee Brady says, cheers, Jason. Lovely. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Lee. And good night, everyone. Ci vediamo prossimo settimana. an Italian. Ci vediamo. See you soon.